Alright, so for anyone who's seen my previous videos talking about Silent Hills and PT, you know that I'm a huge fan of survival horror games. I'm also a huge fan of horror movies. And to see what horror games as a medium has become with a lot of indie games and even some AAA games being released in the horror genre, I gotta say that it's making me lose my hope in the future of horror. I'm gonna go into some details as to why I feel that, but first, I wanna address something here. Whenever I would talk about Silent Hills and PT, I always praised PT for how revolutionary it was and how it played with our fear in a way that no game previously had ever done, at least for me. What made PT so special is that it never gave you release, it never gave you relief from the horror aspect of being in that house. See, in a lot of horror games, and especially a lot of horror movies, the companies and the people making those movies don't know how to create real dread. They don't know how to create a suspenseful, horrifying environment. So what they do is they just give you a bunch of build-up, and then a few seconds of silence, and then a jump scare, and then that's it. You have your release, and you can breathe again. What PT did that was so different is that it actually knew how to create that dread by having you revisit the same area over and over. Psychologically, it played with your head that you were expecting what you saw before each time, and it was always something different. And then, in turn, you were expecting a jump scare because you kept visiting the same places. The difference is, it never actually gives you that jump scare. You can go through all of PT and never once encounter Lisa. Never once encounter the main jump scare if you know what you're doing, or you just get lucky. That's what made PT so special, that the experience was different every single time. Lisa was never gonna pop up at a specific point in a specific room. She could pop up in any room after, I believe, the fourth loop. With most horror games, however, all of the jump scares appear at certain times, they're predetermined, and there's almost no way around them. As a result, that creates a less suspenseful environment for anyone who has already seen the game before, be it they see the gameplay on YouTube or they play it with a friend. They know what to expect, they know when the jump scares are coming. Now, PT, on the other hand, is completely different. You could play PT with a friend, and the jump scare could come at a certain point, and you're expecting it at the exact same time when you play it. But the fact is, it doesn't happen. If you don't play the game the exact same way that your friend did, or the person you saw on YouTube play it, you're not going to get the same jump scare at that exact moment. You may not get the jump scare until later. You may not get the jump scare at all. All the while this is happening, you are going completely insane, worrying about when that jump scare is going to come, worrying about the threat, the inevitable threat that has been presented to you within clues in the game. PT did something that horror games, and especially horror movies, have not been able to do for a long time. Get everyone talking, create fear, create mystery. Everyone was talking about PT, everyone wanted to know what the game was about, everyone wanted to solve the mystery. Can we say the same about modern horror games released before PT and after PT? Unfortunately, there's never been anything like it. Now you can say, well, it's because it was Hideo Kojima, because there was a lot of money behind it, but I'm a firm believer that a lot of money is not required to tell a good story. It's not required to create intrigue. The only thing that a lot of money did was make the game look graphically beautiful, which it did. But look at a game like Allison Road. Look at a game like Visage. Those games also look equally beautiful, running in Unreal Engine 4, almost looking as good as PT did. Now, of course, we've only seen gameplay of it. We haven't actually gotten to play the game ourselves because those games are not available yet. But what we have seen is that they're able to tell the same visual story as PT, using a hyper-realistic setting, taking place in a big house where Allison Road is in a small house. You have these different settings to work with to tell a story. And graphics are great, but if you don't have intrigue, that's the problem. And that is the topic of this video. VR. Look, I love the concept of VR. I've seen what it can do. We know that Visage is coming to VR. We know that Allison Road is coming to VR. We've seen games like Paranormal Activity being played on VR. But the problem I have with a game like Paranormal Activity is ironically the same problem I have with the movies. That game and those movies, all they do is build up to a jump scare, and it doesn't seem like there's anything else going on. Paranormal Activity VR, from what I saw, it looks like a straight line with a couple of mini scares here and there, and that's it. There's no sense of dread, there's no sense of mystery. You know, I saw the gameplay of that, and I saw the two big jump scares that were shown, and you know what I got after that? Absolutely nothing. I don't feel like I walked away with questions, asking about what the game was about. You know, that voice that that I heard? What does it mean? There wasn't any of that with Paranormal Activity. PT, there were forums and, Reddit posts trying to solve the mystery of PT, and that was without a jump scare. That is real horror. That is real terror. And that's what worries me about the future of VR horror games. I'm worried that companies are going to see VR, and they're going to see the immersion that it can create within the player, and they're going to look at that, and they're not going to say, okay, now on top of that, let's build a really good story, let's tell a really good narrative, and let's create dread, let's create a mystery, let's get people talking. They're gonna look at that and they're gonna say, this is our gimmick that we're gonna put on our game, and we're not gonna need to try anything else after that. It's gonna be an easy out. And it reminds me a lot of when the Wii was first released. Now everyone loves the Wii, but everyone remembers all those shovelware titles that were released for the Wii that took advantage of the motion control and didn't have anything else to offer after that. I mean, come on, Major League Eating, are you kidding me? Now, not to say that VR is going to be the same thing as the Wii. There are obviously going to be great games released for VR that take advantage of, the gimmick, of the technology. But the fact is, you can't sell a game system with a gimmick alone. You need to have good games on top of that. And the problem is, and someone in the YouTube comments posted this, and I have to agree, a lot of horror games that were released after PT are trying so hard to be PT. I mean, Visage is directly inspired by PT. They've said that it is. Allison Road, Chris Kessler has gone on record by saying that 2 days after playing PT, he was inspired to make Allison Road. Now, the content of Allison Road is not inspired by PT, but the very idea to make the game was inspired by PT. PT, as we've seen, it sparked an inferno in the survival horror community, and it made people want to go out there and make their own games. The problem is, you look at the success that PT had, you see what it did for people, you see how it brought people together, asking questions, the proverbial campfire that everyone was sitting around, exchanging stories, trying to figure out what the game meant before Silent Hills was even revealed to be, the light at the end of the tunnel. And then even after that, even after the cancellation of Silent Hills, people were still looking for clues because the game did such a good job of getting people to talk. And, you had the creative mind of Hideo Kojima as part of it to fill our heads with questions. And the game kept on getting people interested. That game has not been available for over a year, and there's still people that talk about it. That is the power of a good horror game, and we need to see a lot of that in VR. I mean, imagine a game with the dread of PT, with the mystery of PT, with VR on top of that. That right there, that's a system seller in and of itself, but the problem is, I feel like we're gonna get too many games that take advantage of the hardware and don't tell a good story, that just throw jump scare after jump scare at us and expect that to be horror. And the problem is, you look at horror movies, they do the same thing. This is not what horror is, in my opinion. I don't want to see the medium and the genre that I love be relegated to mindless jump scares with, mediocre build-up and virtually no storytelling. That is what I am so afraid this genre is going to become, and VR is a launching point. It is a stepping stone for survival horror. There's so much that can be done with survival horror with this medium, but what I'm afraid of is that it's not going to be used properly, and the games we're going to get are just going to be shallow imitations of PT and whatever Silent Hills is going to be. Look, I hope I'm wrong. I hope Allison Road comes out and it blows me away. I hope Visage comes out and it makes me not want to go to sleep at night. That's what I want horror games to be. I mean, you look at games like the Fatal Frame series, the Siren series, and then you look at some more obscure games like Haunting Ground and Rule of Rose for PS2. These are games that created dread. These are games that people still talk about all these years later. We need more games like that. We can't have thrill rides where you play through it one time, where everything, is on a track, everything's on rails. Now, not like an on-rail shooter, but everything is going to happen at a predetermined point. We can't have that in our horror games because it doesn't create any amount of uniqueness in each user experience. It needs to be where each time the player, just one player, plays the game can go differently. Different paths, maybe different rooms. If there are going to be, pointless jump scares, have them appear at different points. Make them, determined by your actual actions in the game. I mean, in PT, if you don't gouge out the eyeball in the painting, in the next room, if you turn 180 degrees twice, Lisa will pop out at any single point. That's what I'm talking about when I say we need good horror games, good mechanics that fool the player into thinking that they can be safe at any moment, and then reminding them that very next moment that they're not safe. It can't be when you're playing a horror game and you get to a part where you know for a fact that there aren't going to be any jump scares, and now you're like, okay, I can be safe now, I can relax now. No, that is not what horror should be. You should never be relaxed. You can never feel like you're safe because you know that there's nothing around the corner. You need to always feel like there's something around the corner. And good storytelling, good mechanics, and overall a good game, a good experience that can vary from player to player is how you get that done. Now, I don't know what exactly Visage is going to do in that regard. We've seen a good bit of Allison Road. I've had, thankfully, a few conversations with Chris Kessler, and we've seen a lot of stuff with Allison Road, so we have an idea as to how that game's going to play. Visage, on the other hand, is very different. But Visage, in my opinion, is one of those games that if it's done right, and the experience can vary from player to player in a big way, we could see what just might be what Silent Hills could have been. Now, not 100% obviously, because there's no Kojima, Del Toro, Reedus, and Junji Ito, but we can see a drastic shift in message, in mood, and in tone for what survival horror can be in video game form. And when you add VR on top of that, it's only the icing on the cake. VR is a type of immersion. It's a control scheme, it's technology, and it's the next big thing. But it is not a way out for no storytelling. It's not a way out for a lack of dread. You need to have all of these things present if you want to make a good horror game and tell a good story and keep people talking. And if people keep talking, then, you introduce sequels and it gets people hyped up for those because they still have unanswered questions from the previous game. Maybe they'll be answered in a sequel. There's a lot you can do when you tell a good story. But when you have a game that feels like you're on a thrill ride where everything's going to be the same each time and there's no difference in gameplay, there's no difference in experience, that is where things start to get bad. And I don't want that to be the case with VR. I want these games to be good. I know they can be good if they are made to their full potential and the creators fully understand horror and they understand what survival horror fans want and what makes us tick. Guys, make sure to check out the rest of Coed Gaming, and while you're at it, make sure to check out the rest of my videos talking about Silent Hills and PT so you can hear all of my in-depth opinions on that game. Until next time, take it easy. What's up, guys? Thanks so much for watching, and I really hope you enjoyed that video. If you haven't gotten a chance to already, make sure to check out last week's video, which can be found right here. Also, if you haven't gotten a chance to already, make sure to like our Facebook page and follow us on Twitter. And while you're at it, make sure to check out the rest of Coed Gaming, where we upload gaming videos every single week. And as always, game on.